Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be going over the Phantom Zone versus the Dark Dimension. I talked to a buddy, Lumos Theramax, about it, and I wanted to run the idea by him, and he said it's a not bad idea, so we're doing this now. So I'm going to start off with the Phantom Zone and its most recent scaling, in which it says that the Phantom Zone is a permeable membrane between the light multiverse and the dark multiverse. So the Phantom Zone would have to at least be like what, monitor sphere reaching up to the source wall sort of stuff, because the dark multiverse as goes up to at least the monitor sphere. As we know, Manjack, once he got back to full power, said he'd be able to go back to the monitor sphere. And arguably, me personally, I think that the dark multiverse is sort of like the dark half of the overvoid itself. It's like a portion of the great darkness itself. It's in this newer stuff. Barbados is actually said to be an avatar of the great darkness. Let me go to that scan. So it's saying Barbados was an avatar of the Great Darkness, and remembering that he had control over the Dark Multiverse in its entirety, as well as and the Great Darkness can textually scales up to the presence himself. Well, it should actually scale above the presence because as you can see before, the black infinitude that was the great darkness existed before the overvoid, and it said the presence made the overvoid in this new content. It's really confusing, but retcons aside, based on what it's selling us, presence made the overvoid. The overvoid appeared in the great darkness, and then it pushed the darkness back. And then when the flaw of the multiverse was born, the great darkness began its struggle with the presence. So basically, from what I see, the great darkness, the dark multiverse, are both larger than the overvoid itself. Mind you, the dark multiverse shouldn't transcend the overvoid and be at the level cosmologically, but it's sort of like a shadowy half. Like, the dark multiverse is a portion of the great darkness that's connected to, or the localized horrors of it. I'll draw a map maybe of it, and if this video gets enough views, I'll make a map and then link that in the comments or description. But yeah. We know that the anti-monitor was cursed by the Great Darkness, and remember that was via the anti-life. So, the Great Darkness also took advantage of after the post-crisis on Infinite Earth, and it almost everything was destroyed once again until Swamp Thing showed it that maybe evil isn't necessarily bad or rot. It's like the soil that eventually, like, good falls into and stuff, but from it, good also spawns, and it's a never-feeding cycle. And it's really interesting how he explained it. So, yeah, the Great Darkness should scale to the presence, should be equal to, if not stronger than, the presence, and the presence made the overvoid, so why exactly couldn't an avatar, an infinitesimal portion of that great darkness and its creation, scale to the overvoid itself, or at least all of the DC map? It's even shown such in basic scans. If I were to just look up this, literally, I just go up onto Google and I just have to go through a bit of sites and then boom, I'd have a scan. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really do think that the Dark Multiverse as a whole is larger than it's the equal size of the Overvoid, which is a part of the DC creation map. And as it was shown, the Dark Multiverse was the blackness under that. And then you realize that there are beings who scale beyond even that, which is possible because presence scales beyond Overvoid, such as Upside Down Man's other realm or other place, which encapsulates the Dark Multiverse. So basically, like, his realm should not only be his realm should encapsulate a realm that is equal to the size of the whole DC map. So he should be outside or beyond the source wall. And then you realize that the Great Darkness is beyond even him, and so it's really trippy. As you can see, some stuff from the newest issues. Empty Hand, he was quite a fascinating being. Nick Suotin was corrupted by Empty Hand, or by the Gentry who served the Empty Hand, who tries to seek the Great Darkness. Darkseid was trying to reassemble his godhead, i.e. his total self. And you've already seen that. And as you can see, darkness and light are equal. Now, where does that lead all back to? It leads back to the Phantom Zone. The Phantom Zone is said to be the permeable membrane between these two worlds. So, if I'm being honest, definitely should be the size of them, possibly. We know that there are realms that can exist like this. So I'd probably say that the Phantom Zone is a layer beneath the whole God Sphere and beneath the Monitor Sphere and everything, and it should sort of should be like a wall between them, if you will. Now, I'm gonna get into the Dark Dimension, which should be just as much fun. So, the Dark Dimension should, well, it's already stated, and we already know from people like YFV and Webcam Barrett that there are endless dimensions within just the Dark Dimension, and beings like Taboro and their realms, like, they're said to also contain endless dimensions within them. Let's see. It's stated that there are transfinite amount of dimensions. Humans don't really understand it, of course. The Dark Dimension in the MCU exists in a void of time, where time doesn't exist, and the void of the laws of physics. So the laws of physics govern the universe and stuff. So take that as you will. Marvel has countless multiverses and has infinite multiverses too. This should effectively debunk any scan or not scan, just head canon that there aren't. Let's see. So, like, that's related to the nexus of realities. And Eternity should scale to that, because, like, Eternity is said to have all dimensions in them and whatnot. And we know Dormammu could fight multi-Eternity. Let's see. We know that just in the normal universe and possessing Strange's body, not his own, Dormammu's skilled Sky Fathers. I've already shown that scan in past videos. Let's see. The speed of thought itself is talked here, which is beyond the speed of light. It said Odin and Dormammu represent the primal universal forces, order and chaos. Their chess game will determine the fate of the entire universe. And then Thor asks, can Odin can like my father defeat Dormammu? And then this guy's like, no, he can't. And then he's like, can he be defeated at all? And he's like, yeah, in his native realm. And so it's really all quite interesting because the Dark Dimension is said to have these countless universes in it and whatnot. And if I'm being honest, the Dark Dimension exists outside the stack of the Marvel Universe in a way. So, in a sense, it's kind of like its own multiverse because it has its own infinite dimensions. It's outside the Marvel Universe, so I don't know, maybe. I'd have to better look into that Doctor Strange content or need an expert like YFV or Jobbers and Goons as he goes by now. Into the dimension of death where Strange goes here. It's beyond mortal comprehension. And it's not the nameless dimension, so it should transcend that. As he's going through there, like he's saying, like, oh dang, I'm entering the dark dimension once again. So the dark dimension should exist beyond the dimension of death, and the dimension of death, is beyond eternity, because death is beyond eternity. Dormammu's realm is stated to exist beyond he's stated to exist beyond non-existence and existence itself. Dormammu has manipulated such. His world is half hidden between the real and the imaginary, i.e., the real and the imaginary, like fifth dimension sort of imaginary from DC fifth dimensional imps. So, and we know the fifth dimensional imps should scale above the Phantom Zone. They should scale to the source itself. The local source, not like the true source of the presence that's out in the overvoid, out and beyond the overvoid, I should say. So I'd say that the Dark Dimension with those scans definitely has a chance scaling to it. Scans for another video. Here's what the Dark Dimension is described as. So I'm just gonna shut up so you can read that. In the dimension of death, here Strange is fighting death itself, and basically Death saying, don't move towards that form, and Strange is like, you lied to me, and I was dumb enough to believe it, and Death does not envelop everything. And here it is. In truth, the whole of creation is the sum of death and eternity, but eternity is a man-spawned concept. Thus, his shape, his size, he is all but invisible next to death. So he does have a size, Dark Tower stuff. Sorry, I just love debunking the idea Marvel transcends that sort of stuff. But anyways. The void where eternity once existed, like Strange went into it, and it to reach sanctuary, and here, he's invoking the powers of the Vishanti, Yada 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 yada. Death is saying how you can't really beat universal law. You have left the realm of unreality. In the real universe, everything dies, so that's eternity. Uh, so death or so strange reaches this position or this void, and in that story, like he becomes immune to death. I think like death from within can no longer come to him, but that's later on. As you can see, death Strange accepts his own death, and that makes him immortal. Um, let's see. And Dormammu has fought in eternity consistently, so as is deathlessly recorded in the Book of the Vishanti, beyond death, beyond eternity. Death should be beyond the entirety of the DC creation minus the Overvoid. She cannot control the Overvoid, but she can traverse it. Like, she exists in other creation sort of thing. Eternity is fighting Dormammu. Let's see. So it's pretty clear Dormammu scales to Eternity and can fight him. And with that comes, well, with that should come our toughest part, the verdict. So who wins? Should it be DC with the Phantom Zone, a realm that's a permeable layer that separates the dark multiverse and the light multiverse? Or should it be the Dark Dimension, a sort of different multiverse outside the universe, which has beyond infinitely layered dimensions, that beyond death itself, beyond duality's non-existence, existence? And to this, I say, well, I'm not entirely sure if I'm being honest. From what I've interpreted, the Dark Dimension should take the win. Tough to say, but scaling to the real and imaginary, containing countless dimensions within it, Dormammu casually scaling way above Odin, who I feel like Odin would be a god sphere being, because it's said that the gods are made from the beliefs of man. It would take me a minute to pull up that scan, but we're gonna eventually just show how Odin is in the gods would be in the god sphere if he was in DC. Marvel Odin, of course. So I have to say the Dark Dimension takes the win. Narratively, there's a bunch of stuff I'd like to go into, like Barbados, if he was in the Marvel multiverse, the Dark Dimension, and if it were to replace the Phantom Zone and or Dark Multiverse, and how that would all work out. But that's stuff that you guys have to show me that you'd be interested in. Thanks again at Lumos Theramax for the idea, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.